Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started.
With the size and the importance,
the superpower is
having some sort of
483
fight with civilians.
So you can see yourself, dialogue is
I hope that the China
seemed to downplay.
war is not
The United States is not responsible for dealing with trade wars.
Does trade dictate policy and politics, or is it the other way around?
In this day and age, the word peace evokes a range of emotions. But it would be fair to say if there is one thing our world craves, it is peace, now more than ever. Why do wars even take place? Why does diplomacy fail? Is Western capitalism triggering wars? Is multilateralism the only way out? The 5th edition of the WION Global Summit saw some of the biggest names from across the world gather in Dubai to try and answer some of these crucial questions. The theme of the summit was Mission Peace. On Gravitas tonight, we get you the 5 key takeaways from the WION Global Summit. John F. Kennedy once said, "Mankind must put an end to war before war puts an end to mankind." Wise words, but not a single country seems to follow them, especially not Kennedy's own. Our world is locked in a permanent state of warfare. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine. The theaters change, but the destruction does not. In most cases, these wars are avoidable. There is always a path of diplomacy if you look for it. Unfortunately, world leaders do not. They prefer to use violence and bloodshed to achieve their goals. Discussion and dialogue are forgotten. On Monday, we decided to change that. WION hosted the 5th edition of its global summit in Dubai. This year's theme was Mission Peace. Top policymakers, ministers, corporate leaders, all the big names were in attendance. And in the next couple of minutes, we get you the top 5 highlights. Number 1. The calls for a multilateral world order. This was echoed by our keynote speaker, Abdullah Shahid. He is the foreign minister of the Maldives, also the president of the United Nations General Assembly. Minister Shahid said that multilateralism is a necessity, not an option. And the tool to achieve it? Major reforms at the United Nations. Listen in.
Affirmed during last year's declaration to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, multilateralism is not an option, but a necessity. That is why I have consistently called for the realization of the United Nations General Assembly and the reform of the UN Security Council.
Highlight number 2, what fuels war? Our second keynote speaker had an interesting answer. Former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. According to him, war is kept alive by Western capitalism. It's true even in Ukraine. Only one group is benefiting from Russia's war. That group is the military-industrial complex. The defense companies are making windfall gains.
Arms race and competing in order to gain annual interests in hundreds of billions of dollars justifies and explains the reason why the strategy of war exists at all. It needs to be underscored that the economy of the hegemonic system and at its forefront, the global capitalism, is apparently an economy of war. Basically, without war, capitalism will be incapable of continuing to breathe.
On to highlight number 3, the future of Taiwan. A lot of people have been drawing parallels between Ukraine and Taiwan. If Putin could invade Ukraine, what's stopping Xi Jinping from invading Taiwan? Japan's former junior minister of defense weighed in on this question. He said if Xi Jinping is smart, he will not invade Taiwan. Also, that a lot depends on American action.
Xi Jinping is smart. I don't think he's going to try to invade Taiwan. But there is, of course, a possibility. And there is some luck. I think he's thinking the two ways. One is a peaceful way. The other one is forcing by the military action. I mean, the Chinese PLA. And which option he's going to choose is, I think it depends on the world leader of the superpower is, which is the United States of America.
Highlight number 4, the focus on building peace. We often talk about peace as something that comes after war. But Afghanistan's former minister, Shah Mahmood Meakhel, had a different take. He gave the example of his own country, Afghanistan. The United States spent billions of dollars making war in Afghanistan. Peace was an objective after the war. Instead, the focus should be on peace building, creating systems and checks that prevent war in the first place. Agencies like the United Nations were supposed to do that, but their track record is riddled with failures.
Intervention of the U.S., thousands of soldiers were there, a lot of money was spent, but the actual problem was not tackled there. It was just more like cure just symptoms, but not the real problem, which is how to build an institution, to have a democratic process in a country, inclusion of people in decision-making.
Highlight number 5, widespread appreciation of WION's reportage. Ukraine's deputy foreign minister praised the WION team for its reportage in Kiev.
WION News were among the first to visit Ukraine on the eve of the Russian aggression and stayed there during the most difficult days of the Russian aggression. I would like to thank Ms. Palki Sharma Opathaya for her courage demonstrated in Ukraine in those tragic days.
The big headline from the summit was this: there is an appetite for peace across the world. In the West, in Asia, even in Russia, there is a yearning for peace. But there is no consensus on how to build that peace. Western experts, for example, denied NATO's expansionism. They say it's not real, and that is the next big challenge for the world. Not agreeing on peace, but setting the terms for that peace. Speaking of which, NATO's latest expansion drive has hit a roadblock, and this time it's not Russia, it is one of their own. Turkey has refused to support Finland and Sweden's bid to join the NATO. Let me first give you some background. Finland and Sweden are both neutral countries. Until now, they had refused to join any military alliance, neither Russian nor Western. But Putin's war on Ukraine has changed that position. Both Finland and Sweden ended their neutrality. They are set to apply for NATO membership. Initially, the reaction was positive. The NATO chief promised a smooth and swift entry for both countries. Just one problem, though. To expand the NATO, every member state must agree. In other words, all 30 NATO allies must sign off on that decision. Which brings us to Turkey. The president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has refused to endorse this move. He says the Nordic states are harboring terrorists.
Scandinavian countries are guest houses for terrorist organizations. Members of PKK, DHPKC are hiding in Sweden and the Netherlands. They are even members of the parliament in some countries. At this point, it is not possible for us to take a positive view.
Who is Erdogan talking about? The Kurdistan Workers' Party or the PKK? Turkey has labeled them as a terror group, and Erdogan believes Sweden is harboring them. Now, just to be clear, Sweden does have a sizable Kurdish community. Some of them have even made it to the parliament. Having said that, not all of them are linked to the PKK. To win Erdogan over, Sweden and Finland are dispatching delegations to Turkey. But Erdogan says, do not bother.
Are they coming to convince us? Excuse me, but they should not tire themselves. First of all, we would not say yes to those who impose sanctions on Turkey to join NATO, because then NATO would cease to be a security organization and become a place where representatives of terrorist organizations are concentrated.
This is exactly what Erdogan was waiting for. NATO needs his approval to admit new members. In return, he could ask for anything. He could demand that all Western sanctions be lifted. He could seek NATO's help against the Kurds. He could ask for sophisticated Western weapons, even financial assistance. You see, Turkey is heading to the polls next year, and President Erdogan is badly placed. Inflation is at 70%. The currency lira is down 13.5%. So Erdogan needs a win. And what better than some concessions from the NATO? Chances are Erdogan will abandon his resistance gradually. The question is, what will it take? What is the West willing to offer him? One option is military assistance. US President Joe Biden has asked the Congress to approve a defense package for Turkey. Additionally, Erdogan wants US jets. He is eyeing a $6 billion deal for 40 F-16s. NATO's concessions will depend on multiple factors. The most important one is this: how crucial is the Nordic expansion? Do the benefits outweigh the risks? According to the West, yes. Admitting Sweden and Finland is worth all the risk.
We were very pleased to be joined by our friends Finland and Sweden. If they do apply to join NATO, the UK is strongly supportive of that.
It's an important part that there won't be an between time, a grey zone, but that if these two countries are deciding to join, they can join very quickly.
Well, first let me say that the United States would support a NATO application by Finland and or Sweden should they choose to apply.
So how is Russia reacting to all of this? With caution. Vladimir Putin downplayed NATO's Nordic expansion, but at the same time he had a warning. If NATO puts military assets near Russia's border, there will be a response.
As for NATO's expansion, including through inclusion of the new members of the alliance, Finland and Sweden, I want to inform you, dear colleagues, that Russia has no problem with these states. So in this regard, expansion by the addition of these countries poses no direct threat to us. But the expansion of military infrastructure into this territory would certainly provoke our response. What that response will be depends on what threats are created for us.
How ironic. Putin says he has no problem with Finland or Sweden. Turkey says no membership. For the West, a Nordic expansion is strategically important. For starters, Sweden and Finland are perfect candidates, vibrant democracies, rich populations, strong armies. They would strengthen NATO's northern flank. But this expansion is a double-edged sword. Putin specifically warned against more NATO presence at Russia's borders, and now the West is doing exactly that. Putin may downplay this decision by Sweden and Finland, but that is because he has no choice. Russian troops are bogged down in Ukraine. At this point, Russia cannot afford another invasion. But what about the future? Just think back to the 1990s and early 2000s. One by one, NATO admitted former Soviet states. Russia told them not to, but NATO did it anyway. During all of this, Russia was passive. They criticized it, but never launched military campaigns. In 2008, their patience ran out. Vladimir Putin won a decisive victory over Georgia. Again, in 2014, he launched a war in eastern Ukraine. So do you see the pattern here? Putin waits for the right time to strike. Right now, his army and economy are weak, but who knows what the future holds? Which is why NATO's open door policy is problematic and a constant irritant for the Kremlin. NATO expansionism has already triggered 3 wars, 1 in Georgia, 2 in Ukraine. The next one is avoidable if the West practices restraint. Let's now shift focus to Sri Lanka. The country has a new Prime Minister, Ranil Wickremesinghe. He has done the job before. Wickremesinghe is serving as Sri Lanka's Prime Minister for the 6th time. But none of his previous tenures compare to what is happening in Sri Lanka right now. A nightmare is unfolding in the country. Sri Lanka is on the brink of economic ruin. The shortages and public unrest have led to a humanitarian crisis, while the government faces fierce public resistance. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa escaped a censure motion in Parliament today. If passed, the motion would have blamed him for the economic crisis. Separately, a no-confidence motion was defeated in Parliament today. 122 lawmakers voted in favour of a Wickremesinghe-led government. 76 voted against. 26 MPs abstained from the vote. So Wickremesinghe remains in charge for now. The cabinet of ministers will be rejigged. They have a difficult task ahead. The new Prime Minister is not mincing his words. In fact, yesterday he asked the Sri Lankans to be prepared to make some compromises.
The next couple of months will be the most difficult ones in our lives. We must prepare ourselves to make some sacrifices and face the challenges of this period. I have no desire to hide the truth and lie to the public. Although these facts are unpleasant and terrifying, this is the true situation.
What are these harsh truths? Wickremesinghe yesterday revealed the true extent of Sri Lanka's crisis. He summed up the entire economic situation in just a few tweets. The situation is scary. The money is drying out. The shortages are alarming. This Twitter thread describes Sri Lanka's economic misery. Let's tell you what it says. First, the foreign reserves. In November 2019, Sri Lanka had over $7 billion. Wickremesinghe says the country's treasury is struggling now to find even $1 million. Basically, Sri Lanka is out of cash. Next, fuel stocks. Wickremesinghe said yesterday there is only 1 day worth of supply. Since then, Sri Lanka has managed to bring in a shipment from India, but those stocks will only last for a few days. Sri Lanka needs at least $75 million to ease the supplies. As of today, it does not have that kind of money. Colombo is trying to raise some cash from the open market to pay for the fuel stocks. Already the supplies are running out. Today, the fuel stations dried up in Colombo. Many of them put up this sign. What about electricity? Again, no good news for Sri Lankans. Power outages could increase to 15 hours a day. There is life-threatening shortage of medical goods. This includes drugs and surgical equipment. Turns out Colombo has not paid suppliers for months. Almost $100 million are due. These are big problems and they cannot be solved in a day. So what is Wickremesinghe's game plan? He has come up with a range of proposals. There is a plan to announce a relief budget to ease the shortages. Sri Lanka will sell Sri Lankan Airlines, the country's national carrier. Colombo will also print more money. This will be used to pay the salaries of the government employees. Yes, the Sri Lankan government has not paid them too. Printing money is an extreme measure. It will further reduce the value of the Sri Lankan rupee. But considering the situation, there are no easy options for the country. Meanwhile, the protesters are digging in. Mahinda Rajapaksa's resignation has failed to pacify them. They want the president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, to step down as well. He has bought some time by appointing Wickremesinghe. Why did Gotabaya Rajapaksa pick him? The president is hoping Wickremesinghe's goodwill abroad will help Sri Lanka tide over the economic crisis. But President Rajapaksa only has a small window of relief. The longer Sri Lanka's economic misery continues, the more difficult it will be for Gotabaya Rajapaksa to hold on to power. And from Sri Lanka, we turn to Pakistan. Anti-China sentiments there are on the rise, especially in Balochistan, a province at the heart of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. In recent times, there have been several attacks on Chinese nationals in Balochistan. On Monday, another such attack was foiled. A would-be suicide bomber was caught by the Pakistani authorities. She was going to blow herself up near a Chinese convoy. And this incident comes barely 2 weeks after 3 Chinese nationals were killed in Karachi. Reports now say many such Chinese nationals are worried for their safety and are fleeing Pakistan. What does China plan to do to stop this? Our next report explores.
This is Balochistan, Pakistan's largest province in terms of area and the least developed in terms of progress. For the last 7 decades, it has been in the grip of insurgency, an ongoing battle for independence. Caught in the middle of this battle is China. Why? Because it has invested heavily in the region, built roads, rail routes, and factories. This is all part of Beijing's grand plan, the CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Balochistan is at the heart of CPEC. But the Baloch people say Chinese investments amount to the occupation of their land and resources. So, they're waging a war against China too, attacking Chinese projects every now and then. On Monday, one such attack was foiled. A would-be suicide bomber was arrested in Balochistan. Reports claim she planned to blow herself up near a convoy of Chinese nationals along the CPEC. She belongs to the Balochistan Liberation Army, which of late have been using women as attackers. 2 weeks back, a female suicide bomber blew herself up in Karachi University. The target was a Chinese-run Confucius Institute located on the premises. At least 3 Chinese nationals were killed in the attack. This spate of attacks targeting Chinese citizens and investments is unusual. It indicates a resurgence of anti-China sentiments. Also, Islamabad's failure to quell these sentiments. Beijing has sensed the shortcomings. It is facing a nightmare in Balochistan. Its confidence in Pakistan's security system has also been shaken. It seems to be reducing its civilian presence in the country. Look at this headline. Chinese teachers at the Confucius Institute have left Pakistan and returned to China. Reports say other Chinese citizens in Balochistan have also requested to be sent back home. They all fear for their safety. What does China plan to do to ensure their safety? For now, it is building pressure on Pakistan, calling for the demolition of BLA. This is Hu Shijin, a firebrand Chinese journalist, the former editor of Global Times. He has called upon Beijing to strike BLA camps in Balochistan. He says, and I quote, "The BLA will definitely be more resolutely annihilated. I support Chinese military to launch direct airstrikes against this terrorist organization's camp after getting approval of the Pakistani government." Last we checked, Beijing was yet to take this suggestion seriously. But it is pressurizing Pakistan to take a strong action. The new Prime Minister has no choice but to oblige. On Monday, Shehbaz Sharif chaired a crucial security meeting affirming his resolve to complete CPEC projects and assured security enhancement for Chinese nationals. Will these assurances work? Only time will tell.
Shifting focus to West Asia, inflation is soaring around the world. The surging prices have now taken another victim, Iran. Prices of some essentials have shot up by as much as 300%. The surge has triggered unrest. Take a look. Those pictures emerged over the weekend. We have not been able to independently verify them, but throughout this month, we have been receiving reports of unrest. Thousands of Iranians across the country have taken to the streets. Once again, the Iranian government is facing major public backlash. The reason this time are the surging food prices. Tehran slashed subsidies on basic food items earlier this month. New prices of wheat and flour were announced. And here is how the people are responding. That's right. Those people are chanting death to Raisi. These pictures are believed to be from the Khuzestan province. Many more videos like these are going viral on social media, and they have not gone unnoticed in Tehran. The president of Iran, Ibrahim Raisi, himself issued a response. He refused to restore the subsidies. Raisi said he will not shy away from making the hard choices and called on the people to not panic. But this statement was not good enough. Reports say inflation in Iran is well above 40%. The subsidy cuts are hurting the Iranians. Prices of essentials have increased dramatically. Going by one claim, prices of cooking oil have increased by 4 times. The cost of chicken and eggs has doubled. Flat bread costs 5 times more. Baguettes and sandwich rolls 10 times more. Already, Iran was reeling under sanctions. Now, high prices of essentials are fueling public anger. Protesters are taking out their anger against the ruling establishment. This video emerged 4 days ago. Allegedly, it shows angry protesters torching the office of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
خانزاده لعنت بسیج خامنه ای از طویلت بیا بیرون بی شرف بیا بیرون.
Allegedly, the Iranian government has ordered a crackdown in several cities. Some activists have made serious claims. They say the security forces attacked the protesters with batons and tear gas. There are reports of casualties. One report claims at least 5 people have died in the crackdown. 22 people have been arrested. But it's difficult to assess the accuracy of these numbers. Iran is said to have disrupted internet connectivity. The United States has issued a statement. The State Department said Iranian protesters are standing up for their rights. America obviously has its own reasons to embarrass the Iranian establishment, but there is a fact that cannot be ignored. In recent years, Iran's government has faced a slew of anti-government protests. People have taken to the streets over a range of issues, from water shortages to power outages. Now, surging inflation is hurting Iran. Tehran may have managed to crush these protests, but the public anger against the establishment is very much there. From Iran, we shift our focus to Lebanon. Parliamentary polls have just concluded there amid a severe economic crisis. The Iran-backed Hezbollah and its allies have lost their majority, winning just 62 seats. That's 3 less than the halfway mark. What does this mean for Lebanon's political future? Who is going to call the shots in the country? And how does its political system even work? Here's a report on all that you need to know.
Lebanon's parliamentary polls have concluded. The balance of power has changed. The Hezbollah has lost its majority. But there's no outright winner. The elections were fought between 2 powerful blocs. On one hand were the Hezbollah and its allies that have traditionally been aligned with Iran. On the other were the Lebanese forces and its allies that aligned themselves with Saudi Arabia. In the middle were independent candidates with no clear leanings. So who has won? There is no clarity. No bloc has secured a majority. The ruling Hezbollah movement and its allies have won 62 of the 128 parliamentary seats. That's 9 less than what they won in 2018, and 3 less than what's needed to stay in power. What about the other bloc? Well, the Lebanese forces, or LF, won 20 seats. 5 more than the 15 seats they won in 2018. This makes the Aleph the biggest Christian party in the parliament. Why does that matter? Because Lebanon has a rigid power-sharing system. Under a decades-old arrangement, Lebanon's president must always be a Maronite Christian. The prime minister must always be a Sunni Muslim, and the Speaker of Parliament a Shia Muslim. Until now, this man was the president, WION of the Christian Free Patriotic Movement, a party aligned with the Hezbollah movement. It has won just 16 seats, down from 18 seats previously. Simply put, it is no longer the majority Christian party. What does this mean? That WION could well be on his way out as president. As it is, his term is going to end in October this year. Lebanon will have a new president either way. What about the rest of the government? Who is going to call the shots? No one knows. Experts say, with no bloc-in majority, only turmoil lies ahead. Unless the two blocs reach a consensus on governance, Lebanon could be stuck in a political deadlock. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Talking about deadlocks, there is a new twist in the Twitter takeover saga. Elon Musk is casting more uncertainty over the deal. He is demanding proof from Twitter. Musk wants the company to prove that less than 5% of Twitter's users are bots. Otherwise, he could pull the plug on the deal. The billionaire continues to insist Twitter has more fake accounts than what it claims. But why has Elon Musk brought up this issue now? Our next report tells you more about this bitter battle over bots.
Will Elon Musk walk away from the Twitter deal? Once again, a tweet from Musk has triggered a firestorm. 4 days ago, Musk put his Twitter deal on hold. He blamed the bot accounts. Twitter claims less than 5% of its users are bots. Musk believes the numbers are much higher. He is demanding proof and threatening to cancel his takeover plans. Elon Musk's latest crusade is playing out in public. He is butting heads with Twitter's current CEO. On Sunday, Parag Agarwal published a lengthy defense. He shared how Twitter calculates the number of spam accounts and that the company shared the details with Musk a week ago. Musk replied by first asking why Twitter doesn't just call users to verify their identity. His next tweet was a poop emoji. Those tweets are creating a turmoil in the markets. Twitter's shares are getting hammered. On Monday, the price of one share dropped below $38. That's way below what Musk is willing to pay for them. He has to pay $44 billion to buy Twitter, putting the price of one share at a little over $54. Musk is already distancing himself from that offer. He's saying that a deal at a lower price is not out of question. Is Musk now looking for a discount on the Twitter deal? Reports claim the $44 billion offer is now giving him cold feet. Musk wanted to use his Tesla shares to finance the deal. But Tesla's stock value has dropped by 30%. The electric car maker has lost around $300 billion of its market value. The claim of fake accounts might open an exit door for Musk. If he can prove he was misled, Elon Musk can potentially walk away from the deal. But stepping away now will prove to be costly. If the deal collapses, Musk will have to pay a termination fee of $1 billion. The Twitter takeover battle has been a messy affair. Elon Musk's ultimatum has only created more uncertainty.
Organ donation is a medical and moral grey area in most countries. Donating an organ can save somebody's life, yet many people are reluctant to do it, sometimes because of superstition, sometimes because of privacy. The choice to donate or not is a hard one. But in Switzerland, that choice just got a lot easier. According to a new law, every adult citizen is automatically a donor. How does that work? Find out in our next report.
See these people? All of them are organ donors. The men, the women, the elderly. Anyone above 16 years of age is an organ donor. Sounds strange, doesn't it? Well, not here in Switzerland. This week, the Swedes held a referendum on the ballot was organ donation. Should Swiss citizens be declared donors by default or not? 60% voted yes. Here's what the new law says. Anyone who dies in intensive care is automatically a donor. Their organs will be harvested for transplant. Just two conditions. Number one, the patient must be over 16 years of age. Number two, there must be no objection from the patient. That last one might confuse you a bit. How can the patient possibly object? Well, we are talking about a will. If the patient has specifically refused to donate their organs, then they are exempt. If not, consent is presumed. This law should be a game changer in Switzerland. By 2022, more than 1,400 Swiss patients were awaiting transplant organs. Might not seem like a lot, but for a country of just 8.6 million people, it is. Just last year, 72 people died waiting for organs that never came. This law seeks to change that, to reduce the organ shortage in Switzerland. The question is, will it work? Other countries too have tried out the new system of presumed consent, but the results have been mixed. Some like Austria, Belgium and Spain have high donation rates. Others like Bulgaria and Luxembourg don't. Experts say it is a mix of several factors. Does your culture permit organ donation? Can the medical infrastructure keep up? What role does the family play? All these factors determine donation rates. Another issue is the ethics debate. Doctors are divided on presumed consent. What if critical patients are denied treatment on purpose? Sort of like a fast track to harvest organs. Like all medical debates, this is a grey area, one that has triggered backlash against the entire concept of organ donation. In India, an opt-in system is followed. In other words, people must consent to donating organs beforehand. If not, their organs are not harvested. How this pans out in Switzerland will be interesting to see because 40% of the voters opposed presumed consent. This 40% can always refuse to donate, so legalization alone may not help. The Swiss need a cultural reset. An open debate on the pros and cons of presumed consent.
Let's now tell you what else made news. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
Ukraine's military command has said that the mission to defend the besieged Azovstal steel plant in the strategic port city of Mariupol is now over, ceding control of the city to Russia after months of bombardment. Taliban authorities in Afghanistan have dissolved the country's Human Rights Commission, deeming them unnecessary in the face of a financial crunch. US President Joe Biden orders the re-establishment of US troops in Somalia to help combat the Al-Shabaab terrorist group, reversing an order from Biden's predecessor Donald Trump. Women in Spain are applauding a government proposal that could see their nation become the first in Europe to allow workers to take menstrual leave. The new legislation is expected to be debated and approved during a weekly cabinet meeting. British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss says the United Kingdom will draft a new post-Brexit trade protocol with Northern Ireland soon, but prefers a negotiated solution with the European Union. Chile's constitutional convention has delivered its first draft of the country's new constitution for review in response to the demand of Chileans for a country with greater social equality. A sandstorm blanketed Saudi Arabia's capital, hampering visibility. The kingdom's meteorology center says dusty conditions are also expected farther west in the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. Road and rail links were cut off as heavy rain and flooding wreaked havoc in India's northeastern state of Assam. Over 200,000 people in 20 districts have been impacted. Arsenal have been dealt a huge blow in their quest for Champions League football after a 2-0 defeat to Newcastle. The loss puts the Gunners 2 points behind fourth place Tottenham with just one game left in the Premier League season. 18-time major winner Jack Nicklaus has revealed that he was offered over $100 million to be the face of the controversial Saudi-backed Live Golf Series. The 82-year-old said he rejected the offer twice due to his allegiance with the PGA Tour. The role ultimately went to former world number 1 Greg Norman.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas, leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.
We are celebrating our 230 years of existence and for children to compete.
Go ahead. I don't care. It's gonna hurt. Better keep your eyes closed.